Hello, Yellow Room. So today for our narrative writing, we are going to be looking at lessons 9 and 10. So lesson 9 is about writing a lead or writing like our introduction, and lesson 10 is about writing a strong conclusion. So let's start with lesson 9. So it says that your personal narrative should start with a strong lead or strong opening sentence. So you may have heard of the term like a hook, right? You want to hook your reader and get them to want to keep reading what you wrote about. So you want it to be kind of exciting or something that's going to grab their attention. It says in order to grab the attention of your readers, oops, sorry, that was the rest of that sentence. So your personal narrative should start with a strong lead or opening sentence in order to grab the attention of your readers. Sorry, I misread that. And then it says below are types of strong leads and examples for each one. For each type, write a lead sentence based on your own topic. So remember that these are going to be based on your topic. Okay, so it's not just going to be something random. You got to think about what your topic is and think of an actual lead sentence that you could use. So our first example or first thing that we can try is a jump into action. So for example, as soon as the bell rang, I jumped from my seat and bolted out the door. So we can start our personal narrative with a really exciting action. So since I'm writing about going to Disneyland with my niece, I could say something like, once it got dark, or sorry, let me try that again. Once it started to get dark, we ran for Main Street to find a good spot. Once it started to get dark, we ran for Main Street to find a good spot. Our second kind of strategy or second type of strong lead is a selling description. So for example, I stepped into the hot sand. I could feel the ocean breeze blowing through my hair. So we hear all of that really great descriptive language, and we use that to draw our readers in. So an example for my narrative might be something like, standing around everyone, we smelled the warm churros and waited for the show to start. Our next example would be a sound effect. So these sound effects are also known as what's called an onomatopoeia. And those are kind of sound words. So things like boom, bang, crash, things like that. So an example would be screech, the ride came to a halt right in front of me as I stepped up for my turn. So I might say, boom, the first firework lit up the sky and startled us all. Boom, the first firework lit up the sky and startled us all. Right, that sounds kind of exciting. You want to keep reading that. Our next example would be to use dialogue. So to kind of draw back on something that we talked about last week with dialogue and kind of what our characters are saying, we can use that to open up our narrative. So an example would be, where do you think you're going? Mom asked as I zipped past her and out the front door. So an example that I might use for my narrative is, let's go, Lila, I shouted as we tore through the crowd. And our last one is called inner dialogue. So we have kind of regular dialogue when we're talking to somebody or when we're talking out loud, but then we also have inner dialogue. So that's kind of the stuff that we think in our heads. For example, what was I thinking? I asked myself as I climbed up the steep rock. So I might say something like, I might run out of breath before we even make it there, I thought as we ran across the park. All right, so your assignment for lesson 9 is to write one lead, so one example lead sentence for each of those 5 types of leads. Okay, that doesn't mean that you have to use these leads in your narrative. These are just really great starting points. So you need to write one sentence or one lead sentence for each one of those 5 for jump into action, selling description, sound effects, dialogue, and inner dialogue. Lesson 10 talks about writing a strong ending. So writing a strong ending is almost just as important as writing that strong lead or that strong beginning part of our narrative. So it says your personal narrative should come together in the end and give the reader a sense of closure, right? You don't want to kind of end the story or end your narrative on a cliffhanger, right? Since you're not writing a sequel, we don't want to end it like that. We want to give our readers a sense of closure, a sense of kind of we tied it all up at the end. We tie it all up in a nice bow like a present. So below or on our page, we have some ideas to think about when we're ending our personal narrative. More than one of these kind of things to think about might apply to your narrative. So what you'll need to do is write a couple of sentences in each of the boxes and keep these things in mind when you write the ending for your personal narrative. So that first box, what conflicts were resolved? So for my narrative, a conflict that may have been resolved was we finally got a good spot to watch the fireworks. How did you feel about your experience? So if I were to think about how I felt about that whole experience, I felt excited to be an auntie, but exhausted from running across Disneyland to make the fireworks show. I also was really nervous because I wasn't sure if Lila, my niece, liked me. Right? I wasn't sure. I'd never met her before. The next question is what lessons can be learned from your experience? So one lesson we can learn from my experience with Disneyland would be get to Main Street well before the fireworks show, so you aren't running through crowds, right? Get to Main Street before then, because you don't want to be running through the crowds. But the other thing that I kind of learned from my experience is that I didn't need to worry about if my niece would like me. She already loved our family. And the last one is what final thoughts do you have about your experience? So I could say something like, couldn't wait to spend more time with her. I couldn't wait to get to know her more. I couldn't wait until she was officially adopted by my brother and I could really call her my niece. So for lesson 10, your assignment is to go through each 4 of those questions and write a couple of sentences kind of responding to them. And then keep those in mind when you write your rough draft. So next week we'll talk about writing our rough draft and we'll write our rough drafts and then we'll talk more about that next week. So the only thing that you are responsible for up to this point is lessons 9 and 10. Anything after that we have not done, so please do not work ahead on this just because we haven't taught about it yet. I also want to remind you that I need you to check in week 5 and see if your original link, where you originally submitted your link, has been graded. If it has been graded, then you're good to go. If it hasn't been graded or you see a 0, then I need you to come back to this page. I need you to click on the orange share button Mine's going to take a second to load. I need you to click, yours might say change link to Springs Charter Schools, yours might say something different, but click on that blue spot down at the bottom and change it to anyone with the link. And then click done. If you don't do that, if you don't have it set that way, or if yours hasn't been graded or has a 0 and you don't have it set that way, the reason is because I can't view it. So if you don't have those permissions updated, I'm not able to see what you're doing for writing. So that assignment and every other writing assignment after that will be marked as a 0 because I can't see it. So make sure that you check that and change it if you need to. And if you need help with that, please let me know and I'm happy to help. Alrighty, have a fantastic day, Yellow Room.